This video is going to be a repost of the first full review that I did on the Giant Trance 2751. The reason that I'm doing this is because I had some riding scenes in that video and I used music, and YouTube recently let me know that even though it was originally royalty-free music, there's an issue with it. So I've got to redo this without the music, and I'm not going to do the riding scene. So I'm going to go straight to the review. And by the way, I am going to post my first review after riding in the mountains in about another few weeks from now. I've got some trips coming up, so I'll do another review after riding this bike in the mountains. So here you go. This video is going to be my review of the Giant Trance Advanced 2751, and this will follow my first look review. And I think this will be a very anticipated review by a lot of comments I've gotten out there. And I'm actually shooting this on location at Santos in Ocala, Florida. And probably the best trails that I can put this bike through its paces without actually heading up into the mountains, which I probably won't do for a few more months. So here we go. This is about as close as I've gotten to trail bike perfection. And let me show the bike, and I'll talk about some of the features that I really enjoy about this bike. And I'll start off by saying that the reason that I switched to this bike, just like I said in the first video, is I wanted a bike that was stiffer, particularly the wheels, also the carbon frame and the fork. So those are the three things that really increase the stiffness of this bike. Like I said, the wheels, the 34mm stanchion fork, and of course the carbon frame, which is a carbon front triangle, and it's got an aluminum rear. But let's look at the bike. I said in my first video that this bike was over 2 pounds lighter than my aluminum Trance with the Stans Flow wheels. I had forgotten that the wheels lightened the bike up. The aluminum Trance was 29.2 pounds. This is 27.48, so it's about 1.7 pounds lighter. And I will say that I can feel the difference in the lightness on the flats. It's not extremely noticeable. I wouldn't say that this bike is a ton faster than my aluminum Trance, but it's the stiffness that I'll go into that really makes the difference. So the wheels, let's talk about the wheels. The wheels really do ride nice. They do not give quite as much compliance as my Stans Valor wheels that I have on my cross-country bike. And what I mean by that is they are a little bit more harsh. I mean, it's not a big deal, and with a bike with this much suspension and big tires, it's not going to make that big of a difference. I can see on a cross-country bike that the Giant carbon wheels may be a little bit more harsh than what some riders are used to. They don't give as much compliance as an aluminum wheel, or like I said, the Stans and O2 Valors. Those are designed to give a little bit on bumps, and you can notice it. But these are very stiff laterally and have given me what I was looking for in a stiff wheel set. You know, where they really come into play, and this will be the same case for the frame and the fork, is when you're really torquing up as some hard climbs, or you're going through a rock garden that can really twist the bike, especially at slower speeds. It really helps, and I'll talk about the cornering here in a little bit, but the stiffness really helps in the cornering. The wheels have held air perfectly. They have not leaked at all, and you could see in that first video that they aired up really nicely, and they also really lock the bead in, so they're really secure. So I like the wheel set. They're not as light as the Stans wheels, but they do give a really nice amount of stiffness to the bike, and again, that vertical stiffness that really helps the bike corner. I do also notice increased stiffness in the front end with the fork. The only thing that I would ever think about upgrading on this bike would maybe to put on a carbon handlebar. This is an alloy bar. I notice a tad bit of flex in the bar, again, when I'm going through some chunky rocks, especially kind of, you know, those where you're behind the saddle, not really going too fast, and the ones that can kind of twist the front end. So that's probably the only upgrade that I would do on this bike. Everything else is just perfect. I mean, again, like I said in the first video, Giant did an awesome job with the specs on this bike. But the 34mm stanchion fork does add some stiffness to the bike, and this is a very plush fork, helped by the Kashima coating, which makes the fork move smoother. But this is it's a great fork. And I will say, you know, with a stiff fork, a fork is not going to give you more speed in terms of stiffness. So not like, you know, a really stiff set of wheels or a stiff frame that won't flex when you pedal. Forks aren't really affected too much by pedaling unless you're really sprinting out of the saddle, but you don't really do that on a mountain bike. Where it comes into play is in the corners, and you know, like I said, there's rock gardens that really can twist the bike. The frame also adds some stiffness. So those three things, wheels, fork, and frame, really help this bike absolutely rail the corners. One thing that I really liked about my first Trance is how it gave you the feeling that you could just attack a technical downhill or a technical section, and it really just made you want to just dive into a corner hard. This bike takes it to a whole new level. It's just amazing how fast you can enter a corner, and what I really like about this bike is how late you can brake into a corner. A lot of things make that happen. It's the brakes. I mean, the XT brakes have really good modulation, and the traction in the wheels, and of course the Maestro suspension, which gives a lot of good traction coming into a corner. So you can brake late in the corner. You can just lean the bike over. These Schwalbe tires have a ton of grip. These are the knobby nick 27.5 tires, and by the way, these are the tubeless ready tires. I said that in my first video. Aired up super quick, but they have just incredible grip. The sidewalls seem a lot more durable. These are the snakeskin sidewalls, and I mean, you can kind of hear that. It's got this extra material that gives a lot of durability to the sidewalls, and so this is a great tire. They don't fold over in the corner. They're really stiff. They stand up well in the corners, and the knobs give it a lot of grip. So cornering on this bike is a blast. And like I said, you can brake late, throw the bike over, and then sprint out of the corner. And even on the flatter trails, which we have around here, I mean, there's a lot of rocks at the trails I'm at right now, but on flatter trails, you know, you can just get into a rhythm and really corner hard, especially the loose stuff. We have some loose sand and you know, just kind of loose over hard pack in some sections, and the bike does really well in those sections. And I'm running about 20 psi, probably about 22 in the back and about 19 in the front, and for my weight, which is about 145 pounds, that's really good. Another thing that stiffness does in a bike is it gives you more control. And I talked about cornering. When you're in the corner, you don't get the feeling that the bike is swimming around in the corner. So if a wheels are flexy or a frame is flexing when you're in the corner, it can give that feeling of it swimming around a little bit, hard to hold a line. So this bike gives a lot of control in the corners. It also gives a lot of control over rough terrain, and so that's definitely an advantage of a stiffer bike. One final thing I want to say about the stiffness of the bike is also when a bike is stiff, it allows you to control the rear end better in the bike. So you know, when you develop your skills as a mountain biker, you're not just cornering using the front wheel, but you're also using the handlebars to whip the rear end around a corner. And the stiffer the bike, the easier that is to do. What also helps that on this bike is the fact that it has the 27.5 wheels, which allows the bike to be built with shorter chainstays. The shorter the chainstay, the more control you're going to have over the rear end. Let's talk about the Maestro suspension. I'm no stranger to Maestro suspension. I've ridden other types of virtual pivot. I think that the Maestro combines a strong pedaling platform with a plush feel better than a lot of suspension designs that I've ridden, and this bike does the same thing. I pretty much ran the shock my first few weeks of riding this bike in the pro pedal setting. Locked out over to the right, all the way over towards the drivetrain is fully locked out. The only reason you would really use that is just riding on pavement. So I kept it in the Pro Pedal setting. I also, on the rough, rocky sections that I rode today, I moved it over to the open position. And like I said in my first video, this new Fox suspension, you actually adjust the fully open position. You used to adjust the Pro Pedal, but it's got 1, 2, and 3. I tried it on 2 and 3. I ended up keeping it on 2. If I were to go up into the mountains, or when I go to the mountains, I'm going to put it on 1. I like it just absolutely fully open when I'm coming down a descent. But I wanted a little bit more pedaling platform, because the rocks that we ride here, you're going down a rocky section and then heading back up a rocky section, and you need to get some pedaling platform. Now, even with it open, the Maestro suspension gives a very firm pedaling platform, so the chain tension causes the suspension to stiffen up. What's nice about that is it stiffens up when you want it to be stiff. So when you're pedaling hard, the harder you pedal, the stiffer it gets. But it still releases when it takes a big hit. Now, this shock is awesome. I do notice it's got a larger volume, and I noticed on big hits the suspension feels more bottomless than my previous Trance. And so I'm really pleased with this Fox shock. It's a really plush shock. While I'm talking about pedaling, let me go ahead and talk about the gearing. This is the first trail bike that I've used that's had a 1x setup, and so far so good. I was a little hesitant because I like being able to take the front derailleur and just drop it down real quick. With this XT shifter, you can dump 3 gears at a time. And then you can only go into a harder gear 1 at a time, but you can go into an easier gear 3 at a time. It's probably not quite as quick as a front derailleur, so there's a little bit of a hesitation when you shift. So there is a little bit of a trade-off. I'm not going to lie. It is nice to be able to hit that front derailleur and just drop it down real quick, but it's still pretty quick. Now, as far as the actual gearing, I don't feel like I'd ever run out of a low gear. So the slowest I went, I put it in the biggest cog in the back, and up a steep hill I was going about 2 miles an hour. So anything slower than that, you're better off walking. So it's got plenty of gear on the low end. On the high end, that's where you'd probably run out of gear on like a fire road, if you're just bombing down a fire road and wanting to just spin it up. At my normal cadence, so around 75, 80 RPM, I go about 23 miles an hour. And 25, 26, I'm getting up there around 100 RPM. So, that's the trade-off. The simplicity is nice. It does lower the weight of the bike, and you've got plenty of low-end gear, but it's that high-end that you may run out on. So that's a little bit of the trade-off with the 1x setup. But so far so good. I'm going to give another review on this bike after I take it up into the big mountains, and I'll follow up regarding the gearing. I'll go over a few more components on the bike that are worth mentioning. The saddle, first of all, I like the saddle. It's one of those saddles that when you first sit on it, it's not the most comfortable saddle, but you really get used to it. And that could be because I'm used to it. Every saddle will put a pressure on a little bit different area. This seems to put the pressure more in the middle. But I do like the saddle. After putting in some more time on it, I got really used to it and like the comfort. I do like the anatomical cutout on this saddle. And again, you might find it a little uncomfortable when you first get on it, but you really get used to it. And I think I mentioned in my other video, or one of them, that some saddles feel real comfortable when you first sit on them, and then they get more uncomfortable as you ride it. This saddle is the opposite. It feels a little bit uncomfortable when you first get on it, but then after you put some time in on it, it's fine. Let me talk about the cockpit. The stem is a good length. This is a pretty stiff stem. It's kind of a stubby, thick stem. It's a 70mm stem, which is perfect. And then the handlebars are 730 wide, and I feel like this is a good width. I would not go with a wider bar. I know some of you out there may want a wider handlebar, and I get it, especially if you ride really rough stuff up in the mountains a lot. You may want a little bit wider bar than 730. I wouldn't go narrower than this on a trail bike, but I like the width. I'm not going to be changing the width. If I ever upgrade the bar to a carbon, I'll probably try to keep it about this 730 width. The Giant dropper seat post is very smooth. As I mentioned in my first video, I never had any real problems with the one on my other Trance or even one of the Reigns that I had. And I'm going to push the lever down and let it go up as fast as I can get it to go. And you know, it does return kind of fast, but I honestly like that. There are times I use this a lot, especially on sections where you've got a downhill and then immediate uphill. As soon as you get out of the saddle to go up the hill, you really want the seat post to come up with you. I've seen advertisements that kind of make fun of seat posts that rise real quickly, saying that's going to, you know, hit you in the butt. It doesn't. I mean, it's fine. I tested it out. I just kind of put it all the way down and let it come up right into my butt and let it do it hard, and it, I mean, barely even hit it. So that's not a concern. I like the seat post. You know, maybe some of y'all out there want to switch to a RockShox Reverb, but the Giant one is easy to work on. It's easy to change the cable, and you know, they've proved pretty durable to me. So I'm liking the seat post. So as I said in my first video, you can fit a full-size water bottle in this one. I could not do that in my other aluminum Trance. And so Giant must have either moved the water bottle mounts lower or made the triangle a little bit bigger, but that's proof. That's a full size. I mean, you don't have a ton of room in there by any means, but you can fit a full size. I would go with one of these side mount cages. So this is one where the bottle comes in from the left side. And so that's what I would recommend for this bike. It's a carbon cage. You could use a regular water bottle cage, but it's going to be easier with this side mount cage. So this is the newest XT brake. They're not a lot different than the XT brakes from last year or the year before. I don't notice really much of a performance difference in the brakes. They do have a more sleek design, and they've got a little bit of grip inside the lever. Other than that, oh, and like I said in the first video, the way that this comes off, you can release or remove the brake lever without having to remove the grips, which is a nice feature. Other than that, I feel like the performance is about the same, and that's a good thing, because I love the XT brakes. This Shimano XT Shadow Plus derailleur is really a cool design. They've made it look nicer this year. The lever's real easy to work, and I think the derailleur, you know, let me mention one thing about the gearing and the derailleur, or the cassette and the derailleur. Someone had asked me if I ever had problems with a Shimano cassette or drivetrain skipping a little bit when I pedal backwards, and I told him no. However, with this setup, when I have the chain really up here in some of the big cogs, so maybe the last three, it does skip a little bit when I pedal backwards. So I'm going to, when I get home, tune the rear derailleur a little bit and see if that helps. And when I do my more long-term report, I'll let you guys know. But that is a little bit of an issue. That, like I said, I've never had that problem on some of my other bikes, and it's probably, you know, being a one-by setup, it's starting to cross-chain a little bit when you get up here. So when you pedal backwards, it can cause it to jump around and skip to another cog. And then, of course, you got to be careful that you don't crank real hard when you get going again. So you want to do a little soft pedal, a couple revolutions before you start pushing hard. So a little bit of an issue there, but like I said, I'll report back on my next review to see if I can tune that out. Let me throw in a few more comments before I wrap up this video. Now, this is a $5,000 bike. That is by no means small pocket change. But I feel like the value on this bike, with the full XT drivetrain, the Fox suspension, the carbon wheels, everything, makes this a really great value. I think it's probably one of the better values in the industry. So someone who is going to buy a bike like this is probably going to be someone who's been riding for a while and rides pretty aggressively. The faster you go on a stiffer, lighter bike, the more advantage you have, because someone who is newer to riding is not going to ride as aggressively, and so that's why, you know, you don't need a $5,000 bike if you're getting into the sport. And because as you develop your skills, you're going to learn to ride more aggressively. So again, someone who can take advantage of this bike is someone that's going to really push the limits, push hard on the bike. And again, the more you do that, the more the stiffness really helps you out. Let me throw in a few final comments before I wrap up this video. And that is that the faster you go and the more aggressively you ride, the more advantageous it is to have a stiffer bike. Now, this is a $5,000 bike. That is definitely not small change. And so this bike is really made for someone who is going to ride aggressively and ride hard. Someone who is newer to the sport does not need a bike this light and stiff, because you're just not going to push the envelope quite as hard as someone who has developed their skills. So being a $5,000 bike, I still think this is a very good value. If you compare other carbon frame bikes with XT, a 34mm stanchion Fox fork and Fox rear shot and carbon wheels and a dropper seat post, this is the kind of bike that you can pick up and really not have to upgrade anything. Like I said, the handlebar is probably the only thing that I might recommend upgrading. Everything else, I mean, it's a bike that you can ride for years to come. And again, it's made for someone who has really honed their skills and rides aggressively. So I do feel like this is a really good value at being at $5,000. So that's going to wrap it up for my first ride review on the Giant Anthem 2751, the carbon model. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And in a few months from now, especially after I get up to the mountains, I'm going to follow this review up with a more long-term report. Thanks for watching.